I think I should begin by answering the question many of you are probably thinking about. What is that lowest possible damage? Well, you see, the charge shot is a weapon in Cuphead which you're supposed to hold for some time and then release it onto the enemy, and it deals a lot of damage. But if you just mash, it will release at a fairly small rate, tiny, pathetic shots that deal virtually no damage. But that's not all. If you also add the double hearts thing, which, while it gives you 2 additional hearts, it massively decreases your damage, that will be the lowest possible damage. Pathetic. So the rules are: beat Cuphead with only the uncharged charge shot, no EX moves, no supers, nothing like that, with double hearts enabled, and hitless. But before we begin, I must give credit and a huge shout out to Chicken Ninja 42 for being the man who created this challenge originally and inspired me to make this video. Huge props to him. Respect to him. Check his channel out sometime as well. He makes very cool videos. He deserves, I think, more than he has. So check him out sometime as well. He's really cool. Anyway, now that we got everything out of the way, let's begin. I hope you enjoyed this video. Beginning with the route back, besides the fact that I got caught off a little bit off guard by the projectiles moving at like twice the speed, it went mostly smooth. What's our grade? B? Not bad. Goopila Grant wasn't that hard either, besides the last phase. Now that's where it gets interesting. Man, do I hate these tiny, annoying, low-green pests. They constantly fly around the screen. I've lost so many times due to them, but after quite a lot of trial and error, I got it. B. Oh, this one was the first actually challenging one. First of all, these bees. They're so annoying. They're just like the green guys from the previous one. A quick reminder, by the way, that this weapon is single shot, and another quick reminder that even if you mash at the highest speed you can possibly do, it still has a locked speed, and that speed is very small. So these bees are quite mature. Secondly, because we're playing on expert difficulty, which I forgot to mention in the intro, the green frog can still shoot his, what are they called, boxer gloves and because the other one, the brown frog, becomes a damn fan, the movement you have to pull off is quite tricky. And finally, the third phase, which is everyone's favorite, gambling. The options are the frogs, the easiest one to avoid. Well, I mean, still tough, but relatively easy compared to the balls. The balls are much harder to avoid, but still doable. But, I mean, they're all nothing compared to the lines. The lines are insanely hard to avoid, and I've lost so many times to them, over and over and over and over, but after a lot of trial and error, I got it. C. Surprisingly, Hildeberg wasn't that hard, so I don't have much to say. So here's a little tips for beginners section. Had you had the problem of navigating through these red and brown UFOs? Well, you see, the brown ones shoot out when you're just about to go through, and the red ones shoot out when you're going through. So the best way to deal with these UFOs is for the brown ones, you just come close to them, wait for them to shoot, and then you can safely go by, and for the red ones, you just turn yourself into a small plane and just go right by. So yeah, if some of you struggled here, I hope this tip was useful. Oh, and for the boss fight? C. And with this, we're done with Inkwell Isle I. And, I really feel something. I think I forgot something. Nah, probably nothing. Anyway, time for Inkwell Isle II.
Good day for a swell battle. You're up.
And so we begin Inkwell Isle II with Mr. Jimmy right here. The fight was honestly quite tame. And so, the first phase, which is everyone's favorite, gambling. Wait, I already did this bit. So there are three options on what he can throw at you. The cats, the knives, and this. This is obviously the hardest because, you have to defend against the bajillion projectiles constantly flying around on the screen, which is hard. The cats are also hard because, firstly, they follow around, and secondly, the same thing I already said about the bajillion projectiles on the screen because there are a lot of them. So the best option are the knives, which just fly around one at a time in a straight line at you, which is very predictable and very manageable. I mostly just pressed restart every time it wasn't knives. Anyway, besides the third phase, which was quite tough, the fight went mostly smooth. C. This was the first, not just challenging, but actually hard one. First things first, the first phase is honestly really easy because the only thing he does is just drive around from side to side in his roller coaster thingy, but the second one is a different story. I don't know why I was so dramatic in that last segment. No, it's not really a whole new different story. It's just, because it's expert difficulty, there are a lot more of these dark balloons and just what I've already said about a lot of things on screen. The third phase is also not much I can note, but the fourth phase though, the clown had turned into the whole damn circus, and he spawns smaller clowns which shoot their tennis balls at you. Meanwhile, the roller coaster thing drives beneath you at very high speeds, so you have to constantly stay on the constantly moving platforms. So yeah, what I've already said about a lot of things on screen is hard. I'm repeating myself. Speaking of repeating myself, I know I've already said this a couple times, but I just can't come up with a better way to end the segment, so I'm still gonna repeat myself. Anyway, after a hefty amount of trial and error, I got it. Please, I'm sorry, I know I've repeated I think I've already done enough of breaking down every phase of every boss fight, so I'm gonna pick up the pace a little bit so that the video doesn't get that boring. Anyway, the easiest one of the minions to beat is this lollipop candy guy, and the most irritating one was the Smuffin. The last phase was also quite hard because, you constantly have to avoid the head flying around and you have to constantly move. So yeah, that's also quite hard. The one that was surprisingly easy was Grim Matchstick. Apologies for a shameless self-promotion. In one of my recent videos where I beat Cuphead without shooting, which is probably my most impressive video yet, I remember Grim Matchstick was by far the hardest. It took me 17 minutes to beat, and not be confused, I don't mean 17 minutes of trying, I mean 17 minutes from start of the boss fight to end of the boss fight. It was brutal. Man, I remember when I actually got it, on the one run where I actually got it, I had one heart left. I was like barely holding up, and when I beat it, man, I remember I felt like on cloud 9. So yeah, Grim Matchstick without shooting is absolutely sadistic, but Grim Matchstick with the uncharged short shot and all the other rules I've listed is
Here's a real high-class bout. Here goes.
One thing that I forgot to mention, excuse me, is that you're probably wondering how I'm gonna beat this challenge with the playing boss fights, because I mean, you can't use the uncharged charge shot here, so yeah. So I decided that I'm just gonna beat them, but instead of only using the uncharged charge shot, I just decided that I'm gonna use only the default weapon. So yeah, because this default weapon only fires in a straight line, the last phase of this boss fight was quite tedious. Something that is also true for another boss fight that's gonna come up later. That's what we call foreshadowing. So yeah, and so we're done with Inkwell Isle II, and oh, you really thought I forgot about the run gun levels? Well, I didn't. Time for a lightning round. First up, Forest Follies. The first level in the game, so not much I can say. So here, guess who makes a comeback? That's right, Tips for Beginners is back. Had you had the problem of P-ranking all these levels? I presume yes. So for each level here, I'll be giving a tip how to P-rank them better. So going back to the beginning, Forest Follies, the first level in the game, so not much I can say. The hardest part here is jumping over this guy, which can be done by having this mushroom fire his pink shot in a relatively specific way, so that you can later parry off of it and jump over this guy successfully. And after that, it's smooth sailing. Next up, Treat Up Trouble. It's exactly the same as the previous one, you just have to jump over the final mini-boss, which isn't hard at all. Next up, Funfair Fever. Oh, I actually have stuff to talk about this time. Firstly, to go past this part, you have to either take damage, use Chalice, or, I forgot what it's actually called, use the Teleportation Charm. Then you're faced with this duck machine, and the way to go past it is by either using Chalice or ducking and using the Teleportation Charm. And at the end, you just have to jump over a hot dog. Next up, Funkhouse Frazzle. The tip here is that if you do it correctly, you can actually go right through the mouth of this thing and it will just die for some reason. Next up, Rugged Ridge. In my opinion, the hardest run and gun level in the game. The hardest part here is this section with the Cyclop, and there isn't any trick to make it easy, it's just hard. So the only tip here is get better at the game. I know I've said it 5 times already, and I'm gonna say it once more. Next up, Perilous Piers, the final run and gun level. It's just like the last one, the hardest part is the ending where you take a ride in this octopus, and there isn't any trick to make it easier, again, so, yeah. And thus, our little lightning round is over. Phew, what are we at again? Oh yeah, Honeycomb Herald. Remember that whole foreshadowing thing I did like 2 minutes ago? I'm sure you do, because I did it only 2 minutes ago. Well, this is what I was referring to. With the power of cartoon logic, Queen Bee transforms herself into a plane and flies at the very bottom of the screen. And because the uncharged charge shot can only fire in a straight line, you either have to stand at the very top of the map and fire at an angle, which is hard, or you have to take the risky option, which I did, and stand at the bottom of the map and fire straight. So yeah, this was quite difficult, but I mean, I got it, I beat it, took a couple attempts, but I mean, I did it, so yeah. Captain Briny Beard wasn't that hard. It was more so annoying purely because of the last phase. This thing inside the ship's mouth is at a very awkward height, so that the only way to hit it is to just jump around aimlessly while mashing the X button, hoping that it will hit. So yeah, that was annoying. Oh boy, if you didn't know, Werner Verman is my favorite boss in this game. So, the first phase was really easy. The second phase though was quite tedious because of all these blades. The third phase was though the hardest because of first of all these mouse ghosts constantly firing at you, this paw just slapping half the screen, and all the gajillion mouse traps. It's just what I've already said a couple times about many things on screen is hard. I keep repeating myself. Sorry. Dr. Cow. I've heard some people say he's the hardest boss in the game, but like, no, he's not hard. He's just tedious. The first phase isn't tedious, but the second definitely is. First of all, it's virtually impossible to hit him while he is in this form. And secondly, because of the damn rules, I can't use super attacks, which is usually how I cheese it. But even the second phase is nothing compared to the third phase. First off, it's by far the longest of all phases. Secondly, what I've already said about super attacks. And finally, just look at the screen. This is like what I've said about many things on screen is hard, but like times 10,000. Just have a look. Holy hell. Calamaria. Probably one of the hardest boss fights in the game. Mostly because of this mechanic. Which especially becomes a problem in the last phase because, I mean, a mechanic that prevents you from moving around is really bad when you really have to constantly move around. Dramatic Fanatic. Not much I can say besides that the last phase was quite tricky because it's hard to aim at her while she is flying around at the top of the screen. Oh boy. Apologies for another shameless self-promotion, but in my very previous video where I beat Cuphead without killing a singular minion, this one was by far the hardest, purely because of the first phase. Not to spoil my own video too much, but just know that there was only one way to do it, and it was quite precise. I actually remember I thought it was impossible, so I just looked it up on YouTube in hopes of finding an answer on how to do it, and I found the answer in a video by Chicken Ninja 42. Again, shout out to him, he's an absolute legend. So yeah, when I was entering this boss fight, I thought like, surely it can't be nearly as bad as the last time, and oh boy, how wrong I was. Yes, it can be just as bad. The first phase is hard because of all the things going on screen. The second phase is hard because you have to constantly move your platform and stuff. The third phase is probably not that difficult, and the fourth phase is the same thing as Sally's stage play, it's just hard to hit the target. There isn't like something specific about this boss fight that makes it hard, it's just all these tiny things combined make it quite difficult. And so we're done with Inkwell Isle III, and hold your tea, it's time for the finale. King dies, and here comes the final tips section. In the last phase, if you're playing on regular difficulty, there shouldn't be a problem. But just know that in expert difficulty, each time he does his card attack, there's one part of it that is just too big to jump over without using the dash. So the tip here is to hold your dash until that part, and then you're fine. A message to you, my audience. I respect you, and I promise to always be honest with you, so that you can trust me, and so that you can know that when I say that this was one of the hardest, most diabolical, and most impressive feats I had to pull off for a video, so that you can know for a fact that this is the real deal. First off, because it's expert difficulty, all his attacks are like twice as fast and twice as strong. But there were also a couple specific scenarios that kept happening to me. Like for example the combo of this Ring of Death and the Goat attack, which is hard for me to defend against. Or the combo of this Dragon attack and the Purple Demon coming from both sides, so you're kind of cornered. I know it sounds like something insignificant and oddly specific, but I swear it kept happening to me. And finally, the fact that he can still cast an attack right before crawling out of his skin and jumping through this hole. It's a small thing, but it's still annoying. But finally, once we do beat the first phase and go a couple circles underground, the second phase is honestly really easy. You just have to look out for the tokens falling on you and the pink flying bombs coming out of his ears. The third phase is, though, much harder, just what I've said about many things on screen already. Sure, you can defeat them, but here you're then faced with a dilemma. Either you focus on cleaning up the screen of all these demons to make your job easier, but then you're not focused on fighting the boss, and plus they respawn really quickly so it's kind of pointless. Or you focus your attention almost solely on the boss, and forget about the minions, but then there are so much minions on the screen and it becomes hard. So yeah, it was hard, but after a lot of trial and error, I got. Just kidding. You see this? You see this boy? Do you realize just how pissed I was? Well, you don't understand just how pissed I was. But this is not enough to stop your boy Franklin. I was determined to. And after a couple more hours of trial and error, little thinking and practice of that last phase for this to not repeat again, Finally, I got it. This was really, really hard, but it was all worth it. These challenges, they're really, really hard, as I've already said. But you know, when you finally beat it, when you set yourself a challenge, a goal, and you finally reach it and you prove to yourself that you can do it, it's very rewarding, and it was all worth it. Thank you. Thank you for watching. But before we leave off, I have a couple things to address. First off, I know there will be people who say I'm fake, and also people who will want to see the full process with no commentary or nothing. Just check it out for yourself. To both of these people, both of you, you're in luck. I plan to release a big upload of all of it so you can watch it for yourself. There will be no commentary, no nothing, just all the gameplay, just so you can check it out for yourself. That's first of all. Second of all, a message to my loyal audience. I know all three of you. Thanks for your patience. I know this video took an eternity to make compared to my other videos, but I hope it was a good leap in quality compared to them. And third of all, about the quality, to all of you watching, all of you, feel free to comment if you have any kind of criticism, suggestion, anything. It does help. New ideas do help. After all, the very previous video on this channel was a viewer suggestion, so feel free to comment. So yeah, with that, we're done. Thanks for watching, I really do appreciate it, and hope to see you again in my next videos. Bye.